first full prescription free and save on refills. Smart, trusted, fair and balanced. Most watched every night. Shepard Smith with news at the speed of light. That's why Fox is the #1 name in news, period. #1 cable news show for 9 years and counting. The O'Reilly Factor.
Thanks for staying with us. I am Laura Ingram in for Bill O'Reilly. And in the Weekdays with Bernie segment tonight, the Factor has been looking at the coverage of the Tea Party movement, with many outlets making a big deal out of the alleged racial incidents at the Capitol Hill protest during the health care vote. But around the same time, this vile anti-war demonstration took place near the White House.
We're going to show you what this flag means to us right now.
Bush and Dick Cheney are still at large. They are fugitives from justice.
It's when they capture these goat herders in Iraq and Afghanistan and then ship them to Gitmo, where the CIA comes in and has them raped. They bring in prostitutes to rape these deeply religious men.
We are done being servants to an unrighteous cause, and this flag is no longer my master.
Didn't hear much about that now, did we? Joining us now from Miami is Fox News media analyst Bernie Goldberg, whose column on the Tea Party coverage can be found on BernardGoldberg.com. Now, Bernie, that video was striking, and the sentiment expressed, the vile comments. But you got to search for the coverage of that. I mean, you had to hunt. You had to have those little metal detectors to find that coverage anywhere. What gives?
Right. Let me see if I understand this. Every fringe event at a Tea Party rally, real or imagined, is covered by the lamestream media, but flag burning at an anti-war rally isn't covered. And you know, I've been thinking about, well, why is this? Well, because these fringe events at Tea Party rallies, whether they're nasty signs or these alleged shouting of racial slurs, which I am convinced at this point never happened, this fits into the narrative of most mainstream news reporters that the Tea Party people are not too smart, they're bigots. So when you see a nasty sign, which I'm against and you're against, but when you see one of these signs, they report it as, if not typical, certainly not unusual. But when you see the flag burning, and just so you know my take on this, while I'm against flag burning, I think it is protected speech by the First Amendment. That's not the point, though. When you see flag burning, they ignore it because, well,
it makes the left look bad.
This isn't.
Yeah, well,
this isn't.
No, it makes the left look bad. That's why they ignore it, Bernie, because it makes those people in the media who support the left look bad too by association, right?
And I'll give you a specific person it makes look bad. After the election, after the inauguration, rather, my book, A Slobbering Love Affair, came out, and the theme of the book is that the mainstream media early on went into the tank for Barack Obama. So now you have Tea Party people who are not only against big government, but they're against Barack Obama. So anything you could do to make them look bad and make their fringe events look typical, you'll do it. And this is why Bill O'Reilly and I, and you know, Bill, he sits in for you on this show every now and then.
I'm in trouble
That's why
now.
Bill O'Reilly and I say it has moved from mere bias into corruption, and that's a big leap. But they made the leap.
Bernie, I love some of the headlines. I'm going to get into the Steve Cohen issue. I love some of the headlines here. Black congressmen run gauntlet of racial slurs. Tea Party turns into Klan rally. Racism simmers below the surface on health care. It's always the worst motives. And you see that the famous shouting video that somehow turned into a spitting video. And just to refocus on what you said earlier, Bernie, you think that these allegations made by John Lewis and others of things that were said never happened. Now, why do you think that?
Well, I'm not sure John Lewis ever said they happened, as a matter of fact. One congressman from Nevada, I think, a black congressman, said he heard the N-word shouted 15 times. Well, you know what? That's a lot of times for somebody to be shouting a nasty thing like that. You think somebody would have heard it. John Lewis, whose politics I have said I don't buy, but I've known him for a long time. I used to work in the South for CBS News. I think he's a man of integrity. Let him come on your radio show, this television show. Let him go on CNN, any place,
And hear about
say,
it.
Yeah, because he hasn't said that yet. The spitting incident, when you hear that a white guy spit at a black congressman, that you have a certain image.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. That's not, even if the guy got some saliva on the congressman, which is rude, it isn't
Well, that's
racist.
Barney Frank on any given interview, so I wouldn't worry about that. Congressman Steve Cohen, though, you want to get into this because he gave a radio interview yesterday, getting a lot of heat for us. Tell us about it. He's a
Yeah, let me
Democrat
just
from
read you,
Tennessee.
while we're looking at him, let me read you what he said. He said, the Tea Party people are kind of without robes and hoods. They have really shown a very hardcore, angry side of America that is against any type of diversity. We saw opposition to African Americans, hostility towards gays, hostility to anybody who wasn't, a clone of George Wallace's fan club, okay? So the Tea Party people to Congressman Cohen are a bunch of Ku Klux
I have the water
Klans.
cannons out, yeah.
Except, look, this is obviously liberal hate speech, and since liberals are so concerned about civility, it would be nice if at least one of them came out and denounced this. But here's the really interesting part. This is the interesting part. Steve Cohen is a white Jewish guy representing a predominantly black district in Tennessee, in Memphis. 2 years ago, he ran in the Democratic primary against a black woman, and a black minister sent out flyers saying, don't vote for Steve Cohen. You ready for this? Because Steve Cohen and the Jews, that's a quote, hate Jesus. Wonderful. This year, he's running against a black former mayor of Memphis who in the Democratic primary, and that person says, we need a black person in this seat, and his campaign manager, another black person, says, this seat was set aside. This seat was set aside for black people. Now, Steve Cohen, what does he do when he's confronted with this kind of racism aimed at him? He turns it around and calls racist names to the Tea Party people. And he does it just to win a stinking election. That is really disgraceful.
It's classic, but this is the last desperate card that is always thrown down in these types of incidents. And Bernie, we appreciate it as always. When we come back,
thanks, Laura.
An outrageous situation in Florida where a teen girl is beaten into a coma because of some text messages. The lawyer for her family is going to be here directly ahead.
Aflac is not how do I fit it in my company's budget.